And with that, welcome to the first ever ByteHive Live Session where I'm going to answer your questions, but also code together. So to get it all started, I'd like to know where you're joining from, since I saw some people in the chat already telling me where they're joining from. Ken Jones from Seattle, Roni from Norway, John Barker from Here to Record from Sweden. And if you have any questions concerning Playout B, workflow optimization and cloud production, or anything about that you want to know about me or ByteHive or Playout B, just put it in the chat and I'll answer it happily. So who's also here? Ken Jones, I already mentioned. Aaron Haslett is here. So to get started, I want to go over some new things that came with the latest update of Playout B 0.9.3. Some of you might already are using it. So this is the upgraded web interface. You can now see the version right here, and it's the normal web interface that you all know. But what really changed is the settings page. Well, not really. There's one new setting and one was removed. So what you can do now is you can select the action. What should happen if a video is finished? So as soon as a video is finished, Playout B gets a notification that a video is finished, and then there are multiple options what you can do when a video is finished. I'll go over the 4 of that are in there right now. You can go to the next thing. So it would just put the next thing that is in your playlist in the queue. It can play the next thing. Not seamless at the moment, but we're working on that. So it would just play the next thing. But then it can also go to the first frame of that video, which is basically a stop. A stop is implemented as a pause that just goes to the start of that clip. And then, of course, it can also pause on last frame, which is useful if you want to use it for stuff that should just stay there. And then we added a new documentation. I already pulled it up for the coding that we'll do together later. So if you look here, we have docs.playoutbee.com, and in the chat there will be a link to that soon. And here we have documented all the new URLs that are now available to you. So we have a control, the one that you already know. Timecode, some of you might know, but some of you might not know that yet. So I'll pull that one up for you. It's the normal Playout B 3000/timecode. This one is meant especially for producers. So if you have a producer on set, you can give them a tablet and just enter this URL. And on the tablet, they will now see the timecode that is running for the video. Right now this is an alpha build, that's why the timecode is not smooth, but in version 0.9.3 that's all working. And the cool thing with this is if I as a playback operator give that out to my TD or my director, I don't have to fear that they accidentally trigger something, because you can't trigger anything from this view. Then to go over the next one, there's also Countdown, which is a new one that we added. Countdown actually enables you to do a countdown, like the name says. So if I render out the countdown, it can do something pretty cool. So I have current timecode and remaining timecode. But what I now also have is the current time and the end time. So it tells you what time it is and when the video will end. But as soon as you start a video, and you might notice that you need just a little bit more time, or just make the video a little bit smaller. And what you can do then is just select the time. It goes down to the second. It will start it at that second. So what this will do, it will calculate how fast or how slow it should play the video for it to hit automatically that specific point. So let's see if we have some questions. So, great question from John Barker from Here to Record. The music you heard from the start that actually came from Playout B. That's a... And for some reason it starts playing again, which is totally fine. So let's stop the playing of that. And if I now move this here over, and I can show you now. So this is my local Playout B. And a feature that is little known, but a lot of people will like, is we now support .wav files and MP3s. So what it's available with that one, you can just use it also as a music player. We use it to play in intro and outro music. And with the play next feature, because for music, the small pause is not as noticeable as for video. What you can do with the music then is like just have a playlist. And the feature that we also have is if it's at the end and you want to play the next, it will start over from again. So yeah, that's actually a pretty cool feature. And if you want to know what music I used or you like the music, there in the description there's a link to Artlist where I have music from. You actually get 2 months for free if you use that link. And there's also a playlist of all the music that I used. I hope that answers your question, John. So if anybody else has another question about Playout B, I will answer that one, or I can talk a bit more about what we added. So second output is also an interesting feature that was put in as a request for hybrid workflows. So when you want to live stream but also show a local audience a video, what you can do is you have the normal Playout B open, but then you can also open second output. This is not perfectly synced, but what it does is it clones all the events that is happening. So play, stop, pause, end are cloned to the second player. So if you just need a small video being played out to 2 different outputs, you can use that. It won't be frame accurate, or it might drift later. We're working on adding a small buffer for the output so we can sync that even more. And then we now have an overhaul settings page that goes deeply into how to set up all the settings. And then the API page, which I will be going over later in the coding together, where today's workflow project is I have files on my PC, or like I get sent files over email and I want to upload them to Playout B. This often happens if you are like on the go and you have somebody sending your files in. For example, I once did a gig where we were located at a tower with a DJ, and then people could send us in their videos how they are partying. So I cut them up and then put them into a playout device. And for this use case, it's pretty cool if you have a watch folder that then automatically plays out those videos or offers them to the TD. Exactly. So, and I see John Regal. Yeah, I think it was you that I implemented that workflow for. So I'm great that you like it. Then there's another question from Aaron Huslach. Would it be possible to get a frame of video occasionally on a web page overlaid with the counters? That could be useful for the multi-view preview out context. Yeah, that should totally be possible. I'll add it to the feature requests list. There also was a feature request for like a slate. So that's basically what you want to be played in at the start of a playout if it's stopped. So I'll think how this will be added. You just have a /slate where you always can view the slate with the current image. Oh yeah, great. So I remembered you correctly. So if you don't have any questions, I actually have a question for you. For those of you that are using Playout B right now, I would really like to hear how you're using it and what you would like to have improved, or how your workflow could have been improved with that. To go back, a lot of people know me from Playout B, but what's pretty cool about or how the origin story of how ByteHive was created is pretty interesting, because it's created out of frustration that all the tools, like in my church we used 5 tools, and I was like managing 5 different projects, 5 different project files. So the idea of ByteHive is that at one point, we're not there yet, but at one point ByteHive will be the central thing in your workflow. So all the bytes that are normally just flying around, that you have to find, like one config file is on Dropbox, another config file is like for the Atem is locally, but then the guy that normally sets up the Atem is gone. So suddenly you're missing an important config file, or like the state of some device is just unknown. So what ByteHive wants to do is help you improve your workflows. And as start of that, we wanted to have a video player and upload videos to an easy terminal. And since that was not possible, the first choice for me was to create Playout B, which is a player that already started to open up its API. But what we really want to do is do one thing. Each of our programs should do one thing really good. And for Playout B, that's playing out videos, of course, and images and music. But we also want to enable developers to customize the workflow that they are using. And if you are interested, we are working on hosting a session where we start up with like everybody can join. If you never coded, if you already coded for a long time, everything just everybody is welcome, and I'll guide you through a process of like from start to finish while creating a small script. Like you all see it in the code together. And then it's at the end, we hopefully have something that improves all the workflows. So let's get started with some more questions. Gerd M has a question. The file number on the left. Can we go back to the first question? There it is. Can you put the file number on the left side of the list? It would be easier to use with Companion. Yes, totally. The one issue with Companion right now is that, we are 0 index. What that means is the first video is actually video with the ID number 0. So it might be confusing with support for the hyperdeck module, which I'm like now really focusing on getting that to work. It would improve that workflow, but yeah, we can totally add an index number. Another feature that is coming is being able to not trigger by index, but also by name or ID of a video clip. So if I have, for example, an intro video and I know how that video is called, I can play that video with a button click or go to that video with a button click without me needing to like check on which index it is. Then we had another question from Gerd. You accidentally deleted a file on the playlist when I tried to re-upload. I won't do that. The solution was to rename my file. Is that an issue on my side? I'm guessing you were on the Raspberry Pi. So one of the fundamental goals of Playout B is that I don't want to touch your files, because what you will see in the long term is that the current Playout B app is just the start and the core, but there will be multiple native to the platform output software that can latch onto Playout B, so I don't want to do anything with the file. And in that use case, if there already is a file, but you have deleted them and you had keep video on, it keeps the video there, but you can't re-upload it. What we are working on is a sync function of this folder, so you can actually re-upload it that way. How does the upload? Philip Churchill has another question. How does the upload all work? Can we get someone else to upload using a URL? Yes, so if you have Playout, any device that has Playout B installed on top in your network, you can just go to the to the IP address of that device, and then :3000/control. What that will enable you is it will open up the control interface, and there you can upload your files. What we're working on is an alternative view just for file uploading, and then in version 2.0 or even later adding access control, so you could hide playback controls behind a pin, but people can still upload. Then the next question from Here to Record. I know many of us are using Playout B in production, but are there any strange uses that you didn't see coming when you created it? There are actually some strange use cases. I never thought about the use case for playout on screens for like digital signage. But with the web interface, I have some people using it to just play out a video loop or play out an informative question. The next question is from Coach Chris Tyler. Does Playout B have a change speed function such as slow motion for sport? That's a great question. So many of you know the Atem, and if I now connect my Playout B that I have on my PC right now installed with the Atem, 1 second. This IP address. Let's move this over here. So I connected it now, and what I can do now in here is that now I have to be a bit careful so I don't stop the stream. So in here you now have the countdown, and what you can do is this wheel is fully implemented. Playout B supports both slow-mo, but also fast-forward. It doesn't expose the control in the interface or the API right now, but the Atem can control it. So if you have a software that works with normal hyperdeck to, I think there's hyperslow, that one should work with Playout B. So the next question is it for Marcus Lee Fug. How easy would it be to integrate with vMix triggers? At the moment, I can trigger a transition after I play a video in vMix. Would this be possible with Playout B? Yes, definitely. That's something that after version 1.0 is done, I want to really look into. What you can do right now is use something that translates the trigger from vMix into an HTTP request. And then you can use it to trigger Playout B over the API. But I want to do more for you so it's easier integratable into vMix. The next question from Edgar Moon. Will opening second output several times create significant CPU load? If you mean on the device itself, it shouldn't create more CPU load. It might increase the network traffic since it's pulling the video now multiple times. But all that second output does right now is that it triggers the same time as the normal output. And he actually has a second question. What is the best way to get decent sound out of Playout B, not using HDMI out, assuming microjack out is not a good choice, like you mentioned in Office Hours? Yeah, so I wouldn't use the microjack. What you could use is HDMI and then convert it with like an HDMI audio extractor, or like a cheap small USB sound card. That should also work. Another thing that you could do is second output on your device and get the audio that way. The next question is from Dan Huber. Could Playout B auto-detect media on USB and create an auto playlist? That's also a feature that we are working on. So what we want to do is that as soon as a USB stick is plugged into a Playout B device, we'll try to detect that. You might be able to just refresh it. And then what we want to do is like list all the files that are on there. And then you can either like import all of them, or you can check a link so it auto imports all the videos. Next question from Philip Churchill. Do MP4 and MOV work okay now? MP4 works. There are some issues on the Raspberry Pi, specifically with a subset of users for a subset of videos. We are still investigating that issue. It seems to have something to do with the bitrate or the codec. We are not sure yet. And MOVs don't work on the Pi, or Windows, but on the Mac, if you open the output in Safari, MOV works. But especially for the Mac, we are working on a dedicated output program that uses the AV Foundation to output, but is still controlled over the same Playout B interface that you know. Then the question from G Productions: are there recommended videos that go over the basics of Playout B? We did some videos 2 months ago in office hours, where we installed it all together. But as we are preparing for the release of 1.0, we are also producing more and more videos, and they will all be released on this YouTube channel. So if you don't want to miss the next tutorials, leave a subscription and you automatically get notified when there's something new out. Marcus Leifurg again: can you give us a firm recommendation, maybe an Amazon link, to the best Raspberry Pi for Playout B? So if it's just for the Raspberry Pi, you can use any Raspberry Pi 4, and I really like the 4GB model, because then you have 4GB of RAM, but you're not over the limit for 32 yet, so you don't need a 64-bit operating system. So I would not buy the 8GB, I would just buy the 4GB. And if you want to use it for companion, the Raspberry Pi 4GB is also recommended for companion. Then Gerd has the most anticipated feature request question, probably: if there are any news on using alpha channel with the second HDMI output of the Raspberry Pi. As much as I would like to say yes, at the moment we're still investigating the issue why the subset of users have a problem with their MP4 files. As soon as we figured out what the issue in there is, we'll start looking into possibility of using the second HDMI. Then let's see if we have any questions left, or if you have any new questions that you would like to have answered, feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I would also like to hear where are you using Playout B right now. And if there are not any more questions, we'll just start the coding lab, the workflow lab, and I'll explain what we're doing today. And if you have any questions, just drop them in and I'll answer them during the lab. So it does not look like as there are any more questions. So I'll just go ahead with the coding lab. So the idea, just as I was going to say, there is a new question from Andrew Lipnick. And he says: I'm new to Playout B. What is the best way to remotely add Playout B to a client's offsite control room computer and then control that from my location? So you have two remotes that you want to do in there. The first question is how to remotely add Playout B. It depends on which system you want to add it. If you just want to add it to a Mac or Windows, you can simply log onto over your preferred remote access protocol and then just put the installer file on there, install it. And what I use for remote access is something called Cloudflare Access. Playout B works with Cloudflare Access, which creates a tunnel between the local device and Cloudflare's cloud data center. So you have a secure tunnel, and Playout B can talk through that. So for example, if I want to share my local Playout B with somebody, I just open a specific file on my Raspberry Pi that tunnels now the Playout B web interface out to the web. And with Cloudflare Teams, you then can protect this and put it behind the login page. And the cool thing is, it's all for free. The next question from Joel: can I transfer the license in case my Pi dies? For sure, yeah. You can totally transfer your license. Actually, what I always bring if I'm on location is I bring a second SD card that is just the same image. And then you can have that also if like the SD card dies, which happens more often than the Pi. Exactly. So yeah, this is a use case that we really want to support, and we will also enable you to have a backup for your current device. So if there aren't any more questions, oh yeah, that's the use case where it actually was developed for churches who are using a second screen on a projector. So let me scroll to the chat and see if there's anything that I missed. That's great. Yeah, that was one of the most confusing bugs. When you suddenly get user requests that something is not working, and at one point I realized that we have to start looking into the cooling of the Raspberry Pi. So at the part there was a problem with heat, but we have that in under control right now. Scott Gerald asked, would it be difficult to add a reboot control to the control interface, maybe in the settings page? Of course. Can you tell us to sudo login credentials to be able to do this through SSH? Actually, yeah. So if you log in, you can log in with the password ByteHive to log on to your Pi, and you can do it yourself. Or we will add in a management interface for the Raspberry Pi that will allow you to manage the Raspberry Pi outside of Playout B, so there will be just another port. There will be a link in Playout B, so you can jump over to the interface for the Raspberry Pi, but that one will have a shutdown button for the Raspberry Pi, yes. And Juniper Maxino asked, have you installed Playout on any cloud interfaces such as AWS? Yes, so there are multiple options what you can do in there, and of course I'm using Playout B on Windows in the cloud. It's pretty cool because now you can, via the same tunneling that I explained for via Cloudflare Access, you can get access to the web portal. So what I actually had set up is a Zoom instance in the cloud and Playout B, and then it was going through to Zoom, so I could have a local web interface on my tablet, for example, that then triggered the playout. And another solution that I just saw on my current gig is you can use Isadora for playout and control it over a VPN with like your companion. So now we'll switch over to the workflow lab. What I want to do in here is go back to the core of why I created ByteHive. I want to help you have better workflows, not like automate stuff that is like really critical, but there are lots of things where a small bit of code could really help you not do a repetitive task. So for this use case, I want to do some small Node.js script that just scans a folder. And if as soon as it finds a file, it should upload it to Playout B. This is all supported with the latest update from Playout B, 0.9.3. So I'll cut over to this, and you'll see. So I want to not only go over and code, and you can look at it. I really want to explain how my workflow is, how I write workflow tools. So if you have a small problem and you might not even know how to start, I really want to show you from the start to the end how I do it. So now I explained the problem. In my head I have now the problem that the problem is I don't want to manually upload a lot of files to the Playout B. The first thing I then check is the device that I want to talk to, does it have an API? For Playout B, the answer is yes. And there's our documentation, and now I'll check. Okay, we have a play, pause, stop, select clip, set loop, next, and get clips, get player, get current clip, which gets the current clip, and then upload video. So we see in here we have a HTTP call with post that we can use to upload a video. In here, we then have a file that is an object, and that's the file that we want to upload. The library that I use in Node.js to do HTTP requests is Axios. So I'll open up the documentation for this one. If you don't know where to start, Google is your best friend, and Stack Overflow are two great resources that will tell you where to go and where to start. And then, because I already investigated a bit in how to detect a file changing in a folder, I already know there's a packet called NodeWatch that I'll use, and then I have a small tutorial because I don't know everything, so I'll just ask. And then I open up my editor, which in this case is Visual Studio Code, and let me know if the text is big enough so you can see it. And what I prepared, so I don't have to switch to the other tabs all the time, I have a small cheat file in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm using Node.js Package Manager, also called npm, to install the needed packages. So right now I'm installing Axios. And let's make the terminal a bit larger. And now you see it's already installed. Then the next one I need is NodeWatch. So I will also install that one. And these install commands are always found on the npm website. So for the last one, we actually don't need to install anything that's already in there. So the next step is to implement the code. The first thing I would do in this use case is I would test the single components alone, and then at the end do everything together. So I want to create a new folder in here now. And this folder is called watch folder. And to store this in like a variable so we can later change the name of that folder, I'll just do a variable that's called folder name, and in here I put a string that's called watch folder. Okay, now we have this name, and the next thing is now to watch this folder actually, because right now if I create a new file and drop it in here, it asks me if I want to move it, but nothing happened, so let's move it out again. So normally I would go now to the documentation, but what I want to do now is just look on the code that I already prepared. So I have the folder name in here. Now I am loading the module that I need to check if the folder is something and the folder has changed. And this is just a sample code from the website. So in here, I'll now do dir name plus folder name. And I'm not 100% sure if that works. And in IT and coding, a lot of things are not about if you know how it works. If I'm not sure how it works, I'll just test. So in this case, I do console.log, which will put the output, what's in the brackets out here. So if I now run node point, this once, and now I see that C dev workflow lab, and then it screws up the watch folder. So what I actually have to do is I have to add another bracket in here. And why I have to add two is this bracket normally shows the PC that I want to do something special. In this special, but I don't want to do anything special. So I say special start, and then I'm like, hey, actually I don't want to do anything special, so let's do two. If I now run it again, I have the folder name. So I can go back into here, copy this, and put it in here, and now I can put what I just wrote in up top here. I can now copy in here. Now here are some stuff that's already created. So I can remove this stuff here, because that's not needed. And now if I start this, it will output the watch folder and it will wait for something to change in the watch folder. So now I'll move the new file into the watch folder. And if I did everything correctly, we should see a message called new file changed. And now we see the whole file name, new file changed. So that's already working. So the next step now is, what do we want to do with that file now that we can detect that it's in there? The next thing is we want to upload it to Playout B. So I'm going to uncomment this code so we can now focus on the uploading. And I'll do a quick break for the questions. So Juniper Maxon actually has a follow-up question. With Playout B installed on a cloud instance, have you built this in the path of a hosted workflow all AWS, and was there any unseen issues there? There are the typical issues, but that's not like a issue that is with the cloud. It's just like getting used to the new workflow. What you can do with AWS, and specifically they have something called Media Connect, which enables you, they have a whole pipeline for live video production called Media Live or Elementals Live. And what you can do with Media Connect is you can use something like PlayoutBee and vMix on an instance to create an SRT feed. And this SRT feed then goes directly to a neighboring cloud node. And this node then takes it into the AWS pipeline. So from there on, you can work with it like if you streamed from the ground. Then Scott Gerald, says, I have issues where the PlayoutBee response to the control interface allows me to load videos on the Raspberry Pi, but will not respond to the Atem hyperdeck control, so Reboot fixes it. So there is one issue in here with the hyperdeck control of the Atem. And it's super hard to debug this, to be totally honest. Otherwise, I would have already fixed it. After 24 to 72 hours, suddenly Playout B can't respond to the commands. Either our internal hyperdeck server is not responding anymore or the Atem. With the latest update 0.9.3, we actually enabled a more stable connection process for the Atem and the Playout B, because we are now sending a unique identifier so the Atem can connect to it more easily. What this enables us to do is there will be a restart button on the web interface that allows to just restart the component of the hyperdeck server. And with that, we should be able to fix the issue that you're facing right now. And then we have another question, Michael Svengonson. Sorry if I don't pronounce your names correctly. Maybe have a management console as standalone for other use cases, just a thought. Yeah, exactly. So this will be a new product from ByteHive called Raspberry Pi Manager. It will be a small Node.js process that will run on any Raspberry Pi, but we'll give it to you with the Playout B for free, so it will be just in a new update. Aaron Hosledge asked, would you use a Lambda to copy a file from S3 to an FSX or EAF volume, or can you stream a file directly from S3 into Playout B? That's a good question. What you could do with Lambda, like we are doing it right now, you'll see that there's an upload command to Playout B. What you can do in Node.js, you can redirect buffers. So you could use Node.js Lambda to pull in the buffer from S3 and then forward it directly to Playout B. That should be possible, but I have not done that yet. And AK Productions says, at ByteHive, I had problems with the slow and fast forward buttons to be really unreliable. That's the problem with slow and fast forward right now is that it's just in the Atem, and how the hyperdeck handles it is different to how Playout B handles it. So as soon as that comes to the web interface, it should be more stable. And one thing that we can't support with the current Playout engine, which is based on Chromium, to be cross-compatible is to go back with a file, like run it backwards. That will come with the custom output modules though. So let's go back to the coding. So in here, we now created that we can see if a file in the folder changed. And the next step is to do an Axios call. So this is the call. But now we also have to load this module. So we say create a new variable called Axios and require that this module is being loaded. And in this use case, it should be called Axios. There it is. And now in here, I'll just put HTTP PlayoutBee PlayoutBee :3000/API/ and now we will check with our docs just something so we can get it. We'll use this URL to get the current clip. Put it in here. And for this first test, we'll just print it to the console. So if we save this now, we are getting this JSON object, which is the current playout. We get this data URL, which is the JSON of the current video. So the next thing is to use a post request and use a play command like this. So with this, we just changed the verb of the HTTP API. There are different ways to talk to an HTTP API, and they mean different things. I'll go over them in a later session, because it's already a bit late, and I hope we can finish the script in time. So now we just get an OK back. PlayoutBee just sends OK if it was able to fulfill your play request. The same, of course, works now also with stop. So now it just says stop. Now we go back and check what do we need to upload. We need PlayoutBee :3000 and upload. But the issue that we have right now is that we need to add something, because right now we are not uploading anything. So let's see, how do we create form data? That's now another module that we need. Form data is, a lot of people know it from HTML5. If you create a form on a website, that stuff is then transmitted as form data, which is just a standard for how to transmit this data. And I'm using the same standard for PlayoutBee in this use case. So let's also require form data. And now I have to go and download a image video real quick. For example, I'm normally using Pexels for that. So I say, for example, now I want a video of wave. Can go to videos, and Pexels is a platform where I even uploaded photos, and you can just get them for free, and they are CC0, so Creative Commons. It's a pretty nice website, and I'll drop the link to my profile in the chat later if you're interested in checking out my images, and the image behind my head is actually for free available on there. So now I have a new video file. I'll just rename it to video file so we can easier use it. And what the cheat file now tells us, if we want, we now have form data, and we want to append this one. I actually don't know yet how to do that. So what we're going to do is go on here and look how they do it. So they have form data. We now also need this library. So we'll switch over again to the index.js file and add this library. And now we'll see, okay, so we want to create a new form data that's called form data. And to this form data, we want to add now a file. I see. So in front here, this is the name. So we are going to call it file, because that's what Playout B is asking for. If we go back here, it says form data parameters. It asks for something that's called file. And now what fs create read stream does, that's one of the specialties from Node.js. It can do, normally you take the whole data and do something with it. What this opens, it basically punches, if you think about a file, like a video file being in a container and there are multiple frames in it. fs read stream basically enables you to not take the whole container, but like to use a pipe, put it in the container and then suck it out slowly. Because that way, for example, you could then put it in another container. So in here we create a new write string, and here we can now put video file.mp4. And now we check on how they send it. So they create a new Axios post and they just add form data in here. So we already have this and we just need to add form data in here. And now we need some additional headers. A header tells the server basically, what should I do with this file? Like, what do you want to do? Who are you? There are multiple data points that are transmitted over the header. And in this use case, Node.js is not doing the header automatically. So I'll create a new file and so I'll just have to get the headers. So in theory, if I didn't mess up some of the code or any of the code, I should be now able to run this and we should see it getting uploaded to the web interface. And we have an error. So let's see where the error is. Looks like form data is a module that I have to import. So now I do npm. What I first do is I'll check again how they are naming it. And they are saying that it's a module. So what I can do is now I put npm install, because I want to add a new module, and then the name of the module. So it's now installing. Okay, now run it again. I got an answer from PlayoutBee. That was a bit fast for an upload. So let's see. It might have uploaded, I don't know. Doesn't look like. So let's see what happened in here. It did upload a bunch of stuff. Let's clear this terminal for now so I can have a fresh one and run it again and look at the errors. So we are getting a response. We are sending something, but we are not correctly uploading it yet. So what is request body larger than max body length limit? So it looks like the file is too large for the method that we used right now. So what we do now is we just put this error in Google. And now I have found the post. Let's see, they do something similar. And now I can just, we'll see where we've earlier added the headers. We can now also set other config. So I'll copy these two config elements in here and basically tell the software now, hey, it's fine. I know what I'm doing. I want to upload larger files over this one request. So let's see. I added that fix now if it's now able to upload it. And it seems like it's working. Might take a while to get all the data up. And now there's video file mp4. So that's a success already. So we have now, how I implemented it is there's a common theme in informatics. Because if you look at a problem, it basically applies to everything in life. If you look at a problem, like if I would look at this workflow first and was like, how am I going to do it? It might be too big to solve immediately. But then there's a theme in informatics that's called divide and conquer. So what I did is I picked out multiple smaller problems. So the first problem was like detecting the file. Then the other problem was like, can we send a response, something to Playout B? And now the third problem was send a specific file to Playout B. All we now have to do is combine the solutions of those all to suddenly get a much larger solution. So what do we have to do now? I'm going to do a bit of cleanup. So what you normally do is you import everything at the start. So I'm going to start by uncommenting all this. Now I'm moving all my libraries to the top. And I'm doing a comment here that's called libs. So I know what I'm doing if I look at it a year later. And then here I am going to store my vars. So everything is a bit more tidy than it was right now. So now I also don't need any console logs anymore. And we also store the form data up here. Then here we have something called functions. So what we now want to do is package our code into a function. A function basically enables the program to run it more often. So I create a new function that's called upload file. And I am going to put all of this in here. And now we see we still have this one. So in here, we now want to have file path. And we need a way to tell the function what we want to upload. So now we're adding file path in here. And what that is now left to do is call upload file in here. And in here we now know what's changed. So we now put name in here. And in theory, this should now work. If this works now, there are still some issues with the script that I want to go briefly over, where you then would need to improve. And at the end, I'll finish the script in the next week or so, and I'll put it on Gumroad for free. You will be able to donate a small amount for it, but I'll publish it for free, so you can use it if you want. It's not production ready yet, so I'll clean it up a little bit. So if I now show my folders again, let's move new file out of here, save everything and run the program. So now it's just waiting. We don't see anything because it's waiting for a change right now. So if I now open up in here and this video file I now want to delete. It's not letting delete it because I have keep video on. So I can now delete it. And now as soon as I so as soon as I now drag this into watch folder, you see that it has changed. And now it's done and the video file is uploaded. So this workflow optimization is a success. I'll download a second clip. And if you have questions about any of the code, or you're like saying, I don't understand anything, feel free to ask. I'm here to answer your questions. And if you have any questions else about Playout B, I'm also free to answer them. I'll download the video, then I'll answer any questions. So, for example, now I want another video from Pexels. I'll just download it and move it over here again. So now I have an additional video. I'll move it on here. And now as soon as I upload this or move this to the watch folder, click move, we see watch folder it detected a change, and it will take a bit to upload it because we can't upload it immediately. And it might actually fail because we haven't rerun the script. We'll wait for a little bit, and while we wait, I'll answer a question. The next question is from Johann Wegel. Why are some libs var and some const? Because I haven't rewritten it yet. In this use case, I would change them all to const to be consistent. That's correct, yeah. It doesn't make sense in this use case. So what const allows you to do is const allows you to make something not changeable, and var is something that can be changed. But since we loaded these libraries now, we don't have to change them. Yeah, so what went wrong? Why are we not seeing video in there? So that's a typical problem issue that we have right here now. So we actually are claiming const form data. So while I can add something to that object, I can't like reset the object. What now the idea is, I'll change this to var, because to explain what happened is, in the first time, the upload file function got fired for video file. Then video file, it got then form data append file, and it appended the video data, the video file. The second time when it tried to append that, because we haven't reset the form data after the upload is finished, it actually is like really confused because I'm trying to add another file that's already there. So it doesn't know what to do. So what my job as a programmer now is that not only, oh yeah, it works, but now I have to think about, can it work multiple times? So what I now do is, as soon as I have it posted, and either it worked, which would be great, or even if it doesn't work. So if it fails once and I want to retry, I want to enable a retry. So what I do in here now is form data, and I'm just adding a new form data. And what does it basically resets that variable to be used again. So now I've done that. So we can save everything. I move these two files out. And that's also an issue that you see right here. We move this file out, and it tells me that they changed. Because if we look into the documentation for NodeWatch, it has multiple events. It has one event, where is it? Let's see, events here. It has one event for update, so if a new file got added or a file got updated, or it has one event for remove. So what we could do with this knowledge now is we only upload if it's an update, and but if it's removed in an upcoming update, PlayoutBee API will also support the remove button. We could automatically remove it. That way we have a folder that's completely synced to the PlayoutBee playlist. And of course, that was a question earlier from, I think, I can't remember it right now, but yeah, that will be something that comes into PlayoutBee mainstream. And this distinction between events, I'll add that later. And when I have published the workflow file to GitHub and Gumroad, you'll be able to see how I implemented that. Or if you want, I can talk about it next week. So let's stop everything we did in here and restart it and see if we now move these first a bit. Now, I almost forgot, we have to delete the file first so we can re-upload it. Let's add this to this side and this to that side. So now I can drag video into the watch folder and say move. It detected it and it's already uploaded. And now the real test is if I move the video file, will it also upload? So I click move. We see it detected the change, and now it also uploaded. So yes, it works finally. So let's answer some last questions. Then we're gonna close this out. If you really liked what you saw right now, I'm happy to do that more often. So let me know in the comments or in the chat if you enjoy coding together. And we might at one point even open up a Zoom and you can ask me questions directly. So JJ, now I recognize your name. JJ asks, will the office hours multi-channel version of Playout B be available by this week? That's a really good question. No. We are pretty far into the implementation of our output app on the Apple, on the Mac, because Apple actually enables you to do that pretty easily. But what the problem is, I only have a Mac Mini 2014, and I couldn't get anything fast enough before I leave to a job to Berlin next week. So for the stream next week, I'm not sure yet when it will be or if I can make it, because I'll be on location. But I might use the opportunity to show you, to do a live stream out of my hotel room and put all the stuff that I need in the cloud, so somebody in the cloud can mix it. You'll get a notification. I'll put out a small trailer or something on YouTube and on Discord as soon as I know when it's happening. So let me look through the chat if there's anything left that I want to answer. I don't think so. I hope you had fun today, and I hope you liked what we did today. I really enjoyed hanging out with you and answering your questions, and I really enjoy coding, so I also enjoy that doing live. If you guys have a workflow that you want to get improved, like something small like that, but that always annoys you, like if we look at the clock, it was like 20 or 30 minutes to get something, and it will take me probably half an hour to clean it up a bit. I'm happy to do a live coding session with your problems. So if you have something that really annoys you, I already got a suggestion of adding a website like the Playout B timecode, but for hyperdecks, for the people that still want to use a hyperdeck, not want to switch to the Playout B yet. That could be a possibility. If you have any suggestions for a workflow that you would like to see improved with a little bit of code, put it down in the comments or in the chat, or email me at jonas@bytehive.de. Or I'm also on the Discord. The link to the Discord will be in the chat and also in the description. So with that, it's time to say good night for today. It has been fun to do this little live session with you, and I'm very thankful that you're all here. Also thankful for my two remote producers, Chirag and Guy, that have been in the background. Make sure that you all are behaving in the chat and showed me the messages. And with that, I hope I see you next week.